Napoleon said, number one, a leader needs unwavering courage. And I don't know if I totally agree with the unwavering part of this or not, because sometimes our courage does waver a little. You know, bend but not break. You know, courage mounts up, and then sometimes we have the doubts that creep in, and we reach a little deeper to find that courage that overcomes our doubts and our fears. So I would probably debate a little bit with Napoleon on this unwavering courage, because sometimes courage does waver. But as long as it stays, as long as in the end there it is to serve you, the courage to do what you didn't think you could do, the courage to step into territory that might be a little unfamiliar, the courage to talk to somebody you don't know, the courage to attempt conducting a meeting, the courage to give your first testimonial, the courage to, solve problems you couldn't solve before, that kind of courage. The courage to stand up when it's sort of dark in your corner, the courage to do it when it isn't going your way, seemingly. The courage to try to have a good day in the midst of a bad day. That kind of courage. Wavering a little at times, yes, because we all have doubts that attack us. We all have small fears that creep in. That is the nature of life. But that's what faith is all about. That's what courage is all about. To serve us when our doubts will not serve us well. Faith to overcome fear, and courage to overcome our doubts. But that is a good quality, a good attribute for a leader, and that's unwavering courage. Second, Napoleon said self-control. That, of course, is the very essence of life itself, is self-control. Because we all have this warfare going on. You know, it's going on in the world, the warfare between liberty and tyranny. In our own body, the warfare between health and illness, the struggle is on. The struggle between light and darkness, the struggle between good and evil. I call it opposites in conflict. And as soon as you're born into the world, as soon as you find yourself and discover yourself on this spinning planet headed somewhere, you know that this exists. To be a civilized society, we must drive the dark side of our nature into a small corner and let the positive side flourish. Early, we must learn to exercise self-control. Power is a wonderful thing, but it must be exercised properly. It must be exercised to benefit, not to destruction. So self-control is certainly necessary to be a strong leader, so that you can become the best example. The example of having your temper well managed, to having that dark side of your nature under control. The best example of choosing wise words and not being careless, that kind of control. Control of your appetite, control of your desires, so that they fit into the positive side of life and not the negative side. Self-control, very important. Then he said a leader must have a keen sense of justice. How very true. Justice we become familiar with, even when we're small. When certain things that happened or were done to us that something told us that wasn't right. Someone did us wrong. We have that sense of right and wrong, and it starts very early. Then we have to have that sense of utilizing what's right and what's wrong, so that we develop this sense of justice, this sense of being fair, this sense of being on the positive side, on the right side. To minimize a person's mistakes, they need to have this sense of justice. We have to have justice when we're building an organization. What's fair, what is a good balance. The marketing system that Mark put together has to be fair for everyone. If you have a customer and you take care of that customer, someone else cannot come along and take that customer. The same is true with the distributor. Certain rules and regulations so that all of us have a chance to fit within this framework of fairness, justice, and what's right. Otherwise, enterprise cannot work. Otherwise, we have what we call, in a political sense, anarchy, where there is no justice, when might is the order of the day, power is the order of the day, not the law, not the rule, not what's right, but power. And we would all dismiss that. It's been a catastrophe in the last 6,000 years, the governments that resorted to power instead of democracy, that resorted to intimidation instead of freedom. And we all know the terrible toll that that takes. But it takes a toll not only politically in a country or politically around the world, but it takes a toll even in enterprise. It takes a toll in school if a teacher is unfair. It takes a toll in working on a team where someone is unfair, or where the leadership is not fair in the administration of justice. So this is true. A keen sense of justice and what's fair and what's right. Part of this we have to learn as we go. You know, you don't have it all the first year. You haven't got it all the second year, the third year. After all the years that I've, been around, both as a human being and as a business person, we're still, even at these years, trying to decide what's best, what's fair, what's right, to give balance to our life and to build on a firm foundation for the future. So I agree with Napoleon. Good idea. A sense of justice. Here's another one, he said, definiteness of decision. Indecision is the thief of opportunity. If you don't decide, the opportunity could slip away. If you don't decide what you're going to do today, the day could get away and you're not very effective. I talked about in my recent travels about time management. And here's one of the best ideas of time management. Don't start the day until you have it finished. Is it possible to finish the day before you start it? And the answer is yes. If you don't finish it to the best of your ability, have some idea, some good plan, sure enough, the day escapes. And in the morning you say, let's see, what should I do now? In the afternoon you say, hey, time's getting away from me, what should I do now? And now most of the day is lost. Most of the day escapes not being utilized and doesn't work for you simply because you didn't make those decisions early, at the early part of the day. The decisions we make in the early part of our life sometimes last for a lifetime. The early decisions that you make about what you're going to do with your life as far as Herbalife is concerned, those decisions are vitally important. If you neglect them and don't make them, sure enough, the time passes and the opportunity sometimes is diminished, and sometimes you spend a lot of time now catching up simply because you didn't make those early decisions. So it's the decisions at the first of the day, it's the decisions at the early part of the month, it's the decisions at the early part of the year that greatly determines what kind of year you're going to have. The decisions you make in the early days of your marriage, sometimes those are the decisions that affect the marriage for a lifetime. The decisions you make at the first chance you see opportunity, those decisions, what you're going to do with it, how far you're going to take it, what it's going to be meaning to you in the years to come. Those early decisions are vitally important. Then we need decisions to correct poor decisions, to overcome our mistakes. It's possible, of course, for all of us to make unwise decisions. And at the end of 1 year, at the end of 1 week, 1 month, or at the end of a few years, we say, that decision cost me too much. Cost me a lot of time, cost me a lot of money, cost me maybe a good relationship, cost me a chance to be productive. But as long as you're alive, there's still a chance to use new decision power to correct the mistakes of decisions that were bad in the past. All of us have the opportunity to do that, but I think Napoleon was right here too. You got to be definite in making decisions so that the opportunity doesn't pass you by. Take advantage. Here's the next one. Napoleon Hill said, a good leader has definite plans. How important that is. And of all the years, I think, to cash in on Herbalife's momentum and make some plans for the future, this has got to be one of the greatest years. Herbalife in these 18 years now has created some incredible momentum, not only in opening up the countries, but momentum in the refinement of our marketing, momentum in developing new products, momentum in developing our support system. The key is now for you to make plans to ride on that momentum. Herbalife is like the tide that comes in, and the rising tide lifts all the ships, if they're in the water. If your ship and your boat is not in the water, even though the tide comes in that would lift all the ships, if yours is not in the water, then it doesn't benefit you. So here's what you should do. Have the same intensity to make your plans for the future as Mark Hughes has. As the President's team, Chairman's Club especially, make the plans for the Herbalife company future, you've got to now make your plans. Don't let this momentum pass you by. Don't let this momentum go uncashed in on. Don't let it be like a lost cause for you. And maybe you've, because of the lack of plans, have lost a month or two, or you've lost a week or two, or maybe you've lost a year, and you were 10% effective instead of 100%. Now's the time to change all that and start making some plans. Your Herbalife plans, they're vitally important. You might as well cash in on the Herbalife plans for world expansion, the Herbalife plans for expansion within your country, the Herbalife plans for the expansion of the business, the incentives. Cash in on that, capture that, and say, I've got to have some plans that match Herbalife. Not necessarily match Herbalife in numbers, but that can match Herbalife in momentum, that can match Herbalife in cashing in on the opportunity, your plans for Herbalife expansion. You got to have some plans for your family, right? You got to take your family along. Don't leave them out. One of the challenges all of us have in making our plans is how to balance everything, to make sure that we don't regret at the end of the year, I spent too much time on that. I spent too much money. And then if you have, say, how can I not do that again? And construct some better plans so that you won't have any regrets at the end of a year to come, 5 years to come, 3 or 4, 5 years to come. Definite plans. The plans for the use of your money. One thing I've admired about Mark Hughes since I've met him all those years ago, once he started becoming successful, he had a splendid plan, not only for his personal success in terms of financial security, but in terms of the company. Because Mark has to look after the company and make sure that the company is secure, that the company has plenty of reserves, so that no matter what happens around the world, and when you're doing business in 37 countries, you can imagine what the challenge is to make sure the plans for each country are there, the backup plans, the financial plans, as well as products and opportunity and marketing. It is a challenge beyond comprehension to most of us, what kind of planning that takes in terms of trying to make Herbalife secure for the future. I described it in one of the summit classes as Mark takes the same pledge that the President of the United States takes, and that is to preserve and protect and defend the Constitution, says the President. But Mark has to preserve and protect and defend the company to make sure it's viable, not just in America where it started, but all around the world in each country. It's an awesome responsibility. But now for you, your plans to be financially secure. If you're starting to make some big money in Herbalife, I'm telling you, you got to have a good plan for your resources so that you find yourself secure regardless of what happens. I agree with Napoleon here. You got to have good plans. one more on plans, and that is the plan for your personal development. The plan to be better this year than last year. The plan to take the classes, attend the workshops, do everything you possibly can to show personal progress, not just financial progress, not just the progress of having one more car or one more home, but the progress of personality, the progress of communication skills, the progress of recruiting skills, the progress in how to deal with people, progress in using your influence so that it multiplies its power by 5 by 10 versus what it used to be. You need those kind of plans. A plan for personal growth, personal development. A plan to be all that you can possibly be in the years to come as you develop your Herbalife business and your life business and your family business. All of that. Got to have good plans. Next, Napoleon Hill had a good saying. It was something my father had and passed it on to me as a good philosophy. And here's what he said. A good leader has the habit of doing more than what he gets paid for. What an incredible philosophy this is. The habit of doing more than you get paid for. It's what we call the service that you put out like seeds in the ground that doesn't bring the harvest immediately, but the harvest is yet to come. It's called like putting out the capital in capitalism. Doing more than you get paid for means that you're getting ready for the next move up. Because if you do more than you get paid for, you've made an investment. The average person might think if I do more than the company requires, then they're ripping me off. I'm not getting paid for that extra time, that extra attention. But you must not view it that way. You must say, I'm getting there a little earlier, staying a little later, as an investment in my own personal future, because I want that kind of reputation. I want that kind of philosophy to work in my life. Do more than you get paid for. And this philosophy works incredibly well in Herbalife. You make the Herbalife sale of the Herbalife products. Now you must do more than you've gotten paid for. Right? They've got the product, you've got the money, but you can't stop your investment there. Now you must develop the investment in time, effort, and energy in turning that new customer into a testimonial. And sometimes that's the most difficult work, the work after the sale. Because the sale might be fairly easy. Someone says, hey, I've been looking for this product, I need it, here's my money. But now you've got to stay with them, make sure they don't just buy the product, but that they use the product. And that they don't just use the product, they keep using the product. That's the work after the sale. But if you learn to make that kind of an investment and do more than you get immediately paid for, the payoff in the future can be fantastic. Because as we all know in Herbalife, what really pays off is not a sale of the product. What really pays off is a testimonial. A testimonial that gives you more sales than you can keep up with. A testimonial that takes you places you could never go by yourself, introduces you to people you'd never see on your own. That kind of investment is so powerful. So you do more than you get paid for up front. It's happened for me, making the investment. When I first started lecturing 36 years ago, I talked to high school classes, college classes, service clubs, and I gave it all away. I went and talked for free. Someone said, Mr. Rohn, would you come and do this breakfast talk? I said, sure. Could you do this luncheon talk for this service club? I said, of course. And all of that in the beginning was for free, primarily because I'd made my fortune. I didn't need the money, but I did it for free. But look what it's made for me by giving that kind of service in those early days. And finally, it led to business and led to an enterprise. And I was giving the seminar all those years ago here in Los Angeles, and Mark Hughes was in my audience. So what you don't get paid for, don't worry about that. Just render the service with the vision of the future that it'll come back multiplied. If you have this kind of habit, this kind of philosophy.
Hi, welcome back to Mind Control, where we inspire, and motivate you. Hope you enjoy the video.
It would not have occurred to me to blame my philosophy. Say, well, I got this lousy philosophy, and that's how come I got pennies in my pocket and nothing in the bank, things aren't working well. That would not have occurred to me. I found it much easier to blame the government, much easier to blame the tax problem. I used to say taxes are too high. See, but you can't use that anymore. I threw all that old excuse stuff away. I used to blame the traffic, the weather, used to blame circumstances, right? People say I'm too tall, I'm too short, I'm too old, I was raised in obscurity, raised on a farm, parents of modest means, all the stuff. If you would ask me, how come you find yourself here, Mr. Rohn, age 25, living in America, land of abundance and opportunity, pennies, zero in the bank, not doing well, creditors calling? It would not have occurred to me to blame my philosophy. I found it easier to blame the company policy. I used to say, if this is all they pay, how do they expect you to do well? So I figured that, my future was going to be tied to what everybody else was arranging, the economy and, right, interest rates. I used to say things cost too much. That was my whole explanation, not my philosophy, until my teacher taught me better that this is where the problem was, my own personal philosophy. Here's what's exciting about each person's personal philosophy. That's what makes us different than dogs and animals and birds and cats and spiders and alligators. That's what makes us different than all of the life forms. The ability to think, the ability to use your mind, the ability to process ideas, and not just operate by instinct. In the winter, I'm telling you, the goose can only fly south. What if south doesn't look too good? Tough luck. It can only fly south. But see, human beings are not like a goose, can only fly south. I mean, you can turn around, go north, you can go east, you can go west, you can order the entire process of your own life. And we do that by the way we think. We do that by exercising our mind. We do that by processing ideas and come up with a better philosophy, a better strategy for our life, goals for the future, plans to achieve those goals. All this comes from developing our philosophy. Philosophy helps us to process what's available. Well, when we get here, we got seed and we got soil and we got some rain and we've got some what? Sunshine, and we've got some seasons, and what? The miracle of life. Now the key is, what do you do with all this stuff? How do you turn all this stuff that's available here into equity and promise and lifestyle and dreams and future possibilities? All of this that's possible now with human beings, how do you take all this stuff and turn it into this equities and values? Well, it starts with philosophy. What is the seed? What is the soil? What is the sunshine? What is the rain? Is it possible to take some of each of all the stuff that's available and turn it into food, and turn it into value, and turn it into nourishment, turn it into something spectacular and unique that no other life form can do? And the answer is yes. But you cannot deal with all this stuff and what to do with it unless you start refining your philosophy. Think, use your mind, come up with ideas, and strengthen your philosophy. So the seed and the soil and the rain and the sunshine, this is called, the economy and the banks and the money and the schools and everything that's available out there, processing information, what to do with all that, and turn it into equity and value. That is the major challenge of life, my personal opinion. So each person's personal philosophy now is going to determine what you're going to do with seed and soil and sunshine and rain and miracle, the change of seasons. That's it. My personal opinion. Each person's personal philosophy is like the set of the sail. That's what this seminar is for today. Help you to trim a better sail. You don't need a better economy. You don't need better seed and soil. In fact, when it comes to seed and soil and rain and sunshine and seasons and the miracle of life, that's all you got. Now, what if you blame this stuff? Then you're blaming all you got. If you blame the economy, and you blame the schools, and you blame the teachers, and you blame the sermons and the preachers, and you blame, the marketplace, and you blame the company and company policy, what else is there? When some people get through with their blame list, there isn't nothing else. That's all there is. And if you blame the only thing you've got to work with, I'm telling you, it's called mistake colossal. In not understanding that that's all you've got to work with. And if this is all you've got to work with, then you don't change the seed, and you don't change the soil, and you don't change the rain, and you don't change the sunshine, you don't change the seasons. Right? God says, I'll take 3 springs, 4 summers, 9 falls, no winters, and no, you can't fool with this stuff. You got to take it like it comes. Then what do you change to make your life work well? You got to start with your philosophy. Now, once I understood this, here's the formula for failure: errors in judgment, being lax about developing your own personal philosophy. I'm telling you, it's called accumulated disaster. It doesn't matter whether it's your health or your bank account. Guy's got an empty bank account, probably has high cholesterol. Why? Over the last 6 years, he never paid attention to either one. And it doesn't matter whether it's a dollar, or whether it's your money, or whether it's your cholesterol count. All you got to do is commit the errors, and just because disaster doesn't fall on you at the end of the first day that you don't eat an apple. You say, well, I didn't eat an apple today, and tonight I'm not ill. Well, you got to be brighter than that. Someday you got to leave first grade. Now let me give you the secret to success. Formula for failure: a few errors in judgment repeated every day for 1 month starts the weakness, starts the disaster process. You can imagine what happens in 6 years. Now here's the formula for success: a few simple disciplines practiced every day. And you've started a whole new process called a whole new life. A few simple disciplines practiced every day. And if you decide today to go for the apple instead of the Hershey bar, I'm telling you, you have begun the process of turning your life around. And if you keep up that process, not only with your health habits, but with your money habits, and with your communication habits, with your sales habits and management habits and every other habit that you've got, if you'll start that process, eliminate the errors and replace it with disciplines practiced, I'm telling you, you can start this process of life change immediately. After today, you don't ever have to be the same again. Only by choice. You don't have to walk out of here the same as you walked in today. Only by choice. You can start a whole new process. And you say, well, Mr. Rohn, is it that simple? Yes, it's that simple. Where else would you start but with an apple? You don't have to start with something staggering. What if you should be walking around the block for your good health and you don't? What'll that do in 6 years? I'm telling you, the word is disaster. You could and you should and you don't. Here's an even stronger word. You won't. I mean, don't might mean you're careless. Won't probably means you're stubborn. And either one's called disaster. Could, should, don't. I'm telling you, that's why at the end of 6 years, I found myself with pennies in my pocket, nothing in the bank, creditors calling. Could, should, won't. Could, should, don't is called disaster. Now, how do you change all that? The next 6 years, I got rich. The next 6 years, I became a millionaire. By the time I'm 31, I'm a millionaire. How about that? You say, well, Mr. Rohn, what happened? Well, strangely enough, during that second 6 years of my economic life, the government was about the same. I'm telling you, taxes were about the same. My negative relatives were the same. I'm telling you, the economy was about the same, and prices were about the same, and everything else was about the same. Circumstances were about the same. Then how come I got rich? How come I totally changed my life? I was not the same. Somebody says, well, what did you go to work on to do all that? I started with my philosophy. I started amending my errors by doing some better thinking, changing my mind, coming up with ideas that I didn't have before I met my teacher. And once that whole process started for me, I'm telling you, I changed my whole life. Within a 6-year period, I was never the same.
We'd like to thank you so much for watching till the end. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section. Please also like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and families. Please watch our other motivational videos. Thank you again.
There's a bigger dream waiting for you, just waiting for you to step into it. Everything you try to do is already done. So when I figured that out, oh, what I'm putting out is what's coming back. Let me get real clear about what it is I'm putting out. Real clear. So I read a book about 1989 called Seed of the Soul. And in that book, Gary Zukav talked about the laws of karma, of the laws of cause and effect, the third law of motion. And in that book, he talked about how your intention is always one with the law. Meaning, before you even think about a thing, you have an intention for the thing. And that the intention is going to determine the outcome. That's why the same people can go to the same church service and somebody walk down the aisle just to be seen to put some money in the church, and somebody else who just goes and just has a little bit to offer. The intention with which you give, the intention with which you serve determines the outcome. So when I figured that out, I went, whoa. I changed everything I did on my show. I called in the producers and I said, from this day forward, I will no longer be speaking to the KKK. I will no longer be speaking to people who are fighting each other in a way that it is damaging to the character of myself and other people who watch. From this day forward, I am only going to do intentional television. So it is my intention to fulfill the dream of the Creator. It is my intention to live to the highest calling and be pressed to the mark of the highest calling that I have come to do. And when you can ask the Creator, ask that which made you you, what is your dream for me? I guarantee you, instead of you trying to define the dream, what is your dream for me? If you're able to lean into the dream that the universe and all the forces of light and love and power and grace by all the names that we call God has for you, nobody can touch you. Every single day, I would have a pre-show meeting and have the producers come in and state to me, what is your intention? How do we want to use whoever is on this show, whatever is happening on this show, to serve the audience in a way that fulfills the mission of uplifting, enlightening, encouraging, as well as entertaining. And if it doesn't do that, then I can't do it. There's a bigger dream waiting for you, just waiting for you to step into it. To step into it. Your life is big. Your life is huge. And we spend so much time wanting to be in somebody else's life. And you don't get honored, you don't get revered, you don't get celebrating wanting what somebody else has, because that which created you, divine intelligence that dreamed you from before your ancestors ever knew they would become your ancestors, that which dreamed the seed of you, wants you to know how special, how wondrous, how mysterious, how complex, how glorious, how phenomenal you are. And you get no credit messing in somebody else's territory.
Some people are born with extraordinary size, strength, speed, and talent, but without determination, that talent never flourishes. Because determination is what turns average men and women into winners. No one is born a world champion, just like no one is born a brain surgeon. The successful do what they must, what they can to be the best, to be number one. For me, it was a 5-mile run at 5 a.m. in the morning. For you, maybe continue to be the leader in payroll and human resource industry. And these may be somewhat of a painful sacrifice, but it is this type of determination that just happens to build tremendous confidence. Confidence in knowing that most likely your competitors are not doing the same sacrifices. Determination gives you that It gives you that mental edge.
The secret to change is to focus all your energy not on fighting the old, but building the new you. Put all your energy, not fighting the old, but building the new you. So what is it that you have to do in order to do that? Number one, self-awareness. See, at the end of the day, all of us are the same. The only thing that separates us are the choices we make, the habits that we embrace. And I realize you've got to sacrifice who you've been in 2020. You got to sacrifice whoever that person was. You got to let it go. You got to sacrifice that and put all of your time and energy on building the new you. And building the new you, in my particular case, is more discipline. In my particular case, monitoring myself and my progress, staying on top of it, watching, am I doing well? Am I moving in the direction where I want to move? To give up the things that will distract me from doing that, to make the sacrifice of some things that I enjoy doing, but I can't afford to do it because it's soaking up time, and time is life. Time is life.
Learn to work with the people who deserve it, not the people who need it. You must be like life itself. Respond to deserve, not to need. It doesn't say if you need, you will have a harvest. It doesn't say if you need a harvest, you'll have a harvest. It's not what it says. It says if you plant, chances are good you'll have a harvest. If you plant, you will reap. Not if you need, you will reap. So we must be like life itself. Respond to the people who deserve it by planting, by taking the first step. Even God himself says, if you move toward me, I'll move toward you. That's the condition. You move toward me, I'll move toward you, says the Almighty. When babies are born, they were not designed just to be carried. Babies were not born to be carried all their life. Someday you've got to try your legs. Someday you've got to try your wings. Someday you've got to try. Even if you fall down, you've got to try, because you can't just crawl around all your life. You can't be carried all your life.
You have the ability to create and design the kind of life that you want. And in this place where we are right now, things have changed dramatically. And so you have to make a dramatic change in yourself in order to accomplish the things that you want. What does that look like? What is it you have to do? In my case, mine and my battle has been with cancer, 4th stage. That looks like intensifying my efforts and monitoring everything that I eat. It has to be organic. My state of mind, keeping stress to a minimum. I don't play that. Anything that's unhealthy, anybody that's unhealthy for me, I cut off the relationship. I don't ask them, why did you do that? I cut it off. Why? It's my life. See, we got enough to deal with. When you got the coronavirus that has now mutated into another lethal form and easier to spread, that kind of tension and stress by itself is enough. So you're not given the luxury of accommodating toxic, negative people in your life if you want to live.
If you follow anything or a lot of other people are saying, it's very clear that this device has changed the framework of our society. And whether you're in Southeast Asia or America or Europe or South America, it's universal. This has changed everything from a practicality standpoint. But if you're fearful to go in because it's not what your parents want, or because you're not willing to pay the sacrifice of time and eat shit for 5 years to get what you want, it doesn't matter that you're knowledgeable, that YouTube and podcasting and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter or LinkedIn work on this platform. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I sit here for the next 45 minutes and tell you that in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Singapore, in the collective Southeast Asia, besides mainland China, that Instagram story ads are so underpriced that if you spend $1,000 on them and actually put good content in there, whatever you're trying to accomplish will happen. It doesn't matter if I tell you that. How many people here consume my content? Raise your hands. Thank you. The reality is, and you probably know this, there's not many things that I believe in. There's only 7 to 10 things I believe in. I say them over and over every day in different ways. But if you consume my content, it's very unlikely I'm going to say something in this 30 minutes that's so different than what you've heard from me. It's kind of the way I think about getting into shape. You've heard for 20 years that it's exercise and eating right. You just wish it was a pill. To me, the concern I have and why I've started this talk the way I have is because I'm concerned about what you're going to say. A lot of people don't know what to say. They're insecure. Why would somebody listen to me? And so what they start to do is fake it. They start to pretend they're an expert. They start to wear clothes that makes it look like they're successful. They fake it. It will never work. It will never work. What you're much better off doing is documenting your journey. You don't need to be an expert. You need to be honest. If you notice, sometimes I said it earlier, if I talk about the same stuff, and once in a while somebody will leave a comment, or even here will be like, Gary, you talk about the same shit. And I look at them like, do you want me to lie and make up shit? Of course I talk about the same shit because I've been running businesses for 20 plus years and it works. And when I look at other businesses that work, they're doing the same thing I'm doing. And then when I look at other things, I see businesses sometimes that work for a year and then collapse because it's what I've been talking to you about for the first 15 minutes, which is if you're going to be built on shit, you're going to sink. You like that one? That was a good one. I like it too. Like a shit, it's soft. I get it. Judgment is very interesting to me. I've come to realize in the last 3 years that it is judgment that is stopping 90% of this audience. Especially when you go into different subcultures, it is scary to me how many of you are not doing things because you're worried about what your parents would think. You're worried about disappointing your parents. You're worried about the leverage your parents have. And that is unbelievably true in every culture, but obviously quite true in this culture. Judgment is the number one thing that I need to break you out of for you to even begin to make content on social networks. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be right. You need to stay in your lane. You need to talk about what you know. You need to talk about what you're passionate about. You got to talk about either what you like or what you know. But you can't worry about the comments. Are you really going to live your life based on somebody anonymous saying that you're ugly or not smart? Yet almost everybody does. The amount of people that refuse to post or stopped posting because of a negative comment is remarkable, or because of a snarky comment by their brother or best friend or girlfriend. It's remarkable to me how grateful I am, how thankful I am that I was parented in a way that built self-esteem, confidence.
Greatness doesn't come from people, it comes from God. And yes, our fathers, our natural fathers, our family, they influence us. They teach us what they know. But your gifts, talents, courage, favor, it comes from your Heavenly Father. You are not limited by what people didn't give you. My father had to hitchhike, but he left home and started ministering in the prisons, in the senior citizens' homes. Doors started opening. He was able to go back and finish high school, went to seminary, pastored great churches, started Lakewood, pastored here for almost 40 years. Along the way, I can hear someone asking, whose son is that? He sure is talented. He's such a great speaker, such a gifted leader, impacted so many people. When they found out who his parents were, they thought, how could that be? That doesn't make sense. It's because they were only looking at it in the natural. Every good gift comes from your Heavenly Father. What He's destined for your life is not limited by what kind of natural father you had. Jesse couldn't see the greatness in David. My grandfather couldn't see the greatness in my father. But just because they didn't see it, that didn't stop it from coming to pass. I hope you had a great father like I did, loving, kind, empowering, a father that pushed you further, helped you to be confident and secure. But even if you didn't, you're still going to do great things. You're still going to leave your mark. Maybe your father was like Jesse. He didn't believe in you, or he wasn't around. He talked down to you. When you think of your father, it's not a fond memory. It's a source of pain and disappointment. Perhaps he was like my father's dad. He meant well, but he told my father what he couldn't accomplish, how he was going to fail. What I want you to see is that is not going to stop your destiny. Your Heavenly Father overrides what people do. Your greatness doesn't come from your natural bloodline, from your lineage. It comes from your Father in heaven. What He's spoken over your life will come to pass. Tell me about your father. Well, he was so busy, Joel. He didn't have time for me. He discouraged me. He was loving, but man, he had some rough edges. I don't mean that, Father. Tell me about your Heavenly Father. He spoke worlds into existence. He flung stars into space. He fearfully and wonderfully made you. He said you're a masterpiece. He's equipped you, empowered you, anointed you. He put seeds of greatness in you. He calls you a history maker, a giant killer, a world changer. Whether your natural father was great or not so great, whether you have fond memories or not so fond memories, when you recognize who your Heavenly Father is, that He is the giver of all good gifts, that means if your father was loving, kind, talented, generous, that all came from our Heavenly Father. Maybe it was just the opposite. Then despite what's in your natural bloodline, despite the dysfunction, the limitation, you'll be the exception. You'll defeat giants. You'll accomplish dreams. You'll become all you were created to be. In my grandparents' defense, they had no history of leadership. They didn't know how to train my father to become a pastor. They'd never experienced abundance, more than enough influence. No wonder they couldn't see it. It was foreign to them. Don't fault people that can't see what you can see. God will put things in your spirit that your parents, your relatives, people around you can't fathom. It's too big, too great, too influential. They can't comprehend it. They've never seen it. You're going to set a new standard.
Because the first thing you try to do is shut the thing up. It's not about mind control, right? It's why is the mind doing that? Not don't do that. And you realize, no, that's not what happened, all right? And in the most succinct way I can say it, what happened is as follows, all right? But what we do, because we don't want to have the experience, is we try to push it away. We try to control it so it doesn't come all the way into us. And it seems natural. Like if somebody took a swing at you, you'd put your arm up. And where I went was very different than others, is instead of trying to seek that beautiful feeling, I tried to see why I don't feel that beautiful feeling. And I started working with, okay, the world keeps changing, right? And what you're looking for is the experience. And so I was very young, in my early 20s. Not that money has to turn on, nothing wrong with those things, right? But you have the right to turn on the faucet and then have fun doing those things instead of needing those things in order to get the energy flowing, instead of being a party pooper. It took me a long time to actually clearly see what was going on. So that the energy, the beautiful energy you have and that people have, the beautiful energy can be there, not that somebody else has to turn on the faucet. And undercut that, that you will find that it's a tremendously beautiful tool that can serve you beautifully, that my mind would just sit there and say, yeah, well, she says she loves me, but because you didn't let it pass, you didn't let it free. And by the time you spend a very little period of time on this earth, you've collected a bunch of those, right? So I discovered it by what I said, realizing, having some experiences inside, which we all have, falling in love, having something go your way, and realizing it's not going to stay that way. What you don't realize is that when you do that, it stays inside of you.
It gets trapped.
It stays inside of you. It's trapped. You trap the energy with all of that discord, right? That I said, isn't there a way to feel that all the time, not have it conditionally, but feel it all the time? And you said, I need a moment. I'm okay now. No, you're not. You pushed it back down,
Yes.
okay? And so to make a long story short, it's a long story, right? What would happen if you collected every single thing that disturbed you during your entire life inside of your mind? You would have a disturbed mind, and that's what's going on.
There's a correlation between the way you move your body and your emotions. They're directly, this is even before we get to dopamine hits and our nervous system being, I'm just telling you that the way you move your body is an emotion. You do emotions. And so when you move your body, you can't be in full workout mode, moving your body, running, walking, jumping jacks, jump rope, and be depressed. They don't go together simultaneously because your body doesn't get the connection. I'm moving like I'm joyful. I'm moving like I'm having sex. I'm moving like I'm happy. These are all joyful states. You can't be depressed simultaneously. So the quickest way to change our behavior, our emotions, and our state is with our body. So identity is the governor on our lives. It's the invisible force that no one understands. And once they do understand and get a hold of it, their life can change. And so not only if you don't get a hold of this, will these outward conditions of your life keep being exactly the same, but you could behave differently, you could do all the working out, you could be thinking great thoughts, but you are going to get out of your life, you're going to be the most powerful force in the world, I think, is to be consistent with the concepts, ideas, and worth that you hold for yourself. You will get that out of your life, what you will tolerate. Okay. The deeper part of that is identity. And so identity is very much like a thermostat sitting on a wall, right? This is important. Once that temperature is set at a certain degree, everything in the world externally can hit it, and you will find a way to get that temperature. So even in this house, let's say it's set at 80 degrees. If we opened up all the doors and cold air, just the worst things in life, the blizzard of life came in, the thermostat will kick the heater on and it will regulate this room back to 80 degrees. The reverse is also true. It's a super hot day. Great things are happening in your life. It's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. If you're at 80 degrees, that internal thermostat will find a way over a window of time to cool your life right back down to 80 degrees again. So the key, the secret key, is to be able to shift that identity. 90, 100, 120. So some of the ways, strategies to do that are very simple. One is let's just say financially, you're a 200 degreer and I'm an 80 degreer. If I'm in your proximity over and over and over and over again, you will heat my identity up somewhere in between mine and yours to 150 degrees. Same in fitness, same in everything. So the more you can layer in multiple people, the stronger and stronger that force is. So that changes our thermostat through association. It's a huge, 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 huge thing. People say you are who the 5 people you hang around. This is why. They adjust your thermostat. That's number one. Second way you can change your identity is through doing short bursts of something in a window of time you've not done them before, and they change the thermostat temperature permanently, almost like a water line in the pool. So if it's a certain amount in the gym, or a certain amount of phone calls in your business, or a certain amount of appointments, you make a certain amount of money, oftentimes you're never the same again. You've seen this in your own net worth. I've seen it in mine. There became a point where I made a leap in a short window. I was never really the same again. I could go back a little bit, but not back where I was before. So it's activity or successes, achievements in short bursts of time. And then obviously our self-confidence impacts identity too, and we've kind of covered that. Those are 3 quick ways.